Mike,
Hey man,
I need my marching band better.
don't
I
we
need
all?
my marching band. I need some strategy.
You do need your marching band better.
Or to borrow from a past president, some strategery
Strategery. And
as
the
we go.
students, trust but verify.
All right, man. So we're halfway through a conversation. We started talking about thoughts and strategies to make our marching band better, and we talked about a lot of things in our last episode. Uh, Things that jump out at me is don't be afraid to use your metronome all the time. Um, and then just some smart ways to help teach. And maybe you're trying to teach why waste time teaching things that don't matter
Right.
to your drill and everything. So
Are
let's
not
jump back into
necessary.
that. Let's just jump back into that and
Okay.
pick us back up with some things that we can do to have better marching bands.
I would say a biggie that I see when I see directors working their groups, prioritize your rehearsals. Work on specific sections of drill and or music. It's a really long season. Don't be in a hurry. They start
Okay,
to panic because it turns into this, I don't know, arms race of guys posting on social media how many pages of drill they have on the field, or how
36
much.
sets.
Yeah, and more power to them. And my question would be, do they really have 36 sets on the field, or have the kids
Right.
just kind of wandered through 36 sets? Um, I like to put my rehearsal down into little tiny segments of how much time I'm spending, and then I keep track of it by watching a clock, to figure out that when it's time to move, and sometimes I shut off the clock and it's like, no, we need to fix this 16 counts of music and drill. We can't go any further. We
Right.
might spend an hour on just 16 counts because it's the first 16 counts of the show or it's the last 16 counts of the show or whatever the case might be.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
so prioritize it because sometimes I get in a hurry of we just got to keep running through stuff.
Now,
Run the
based on the
open.
way you said that, do you subscribe to the theory of you don't want to peak too soon?
I don't believe I've never had a band that ever peaked. I don't know. it's I'm not sure. People say that all the time. I'm really not sure what they're talking about because I think peaking is more of a mental thing than a rehearsal thing. But I've never had a band peak. They've always worked until the bitter end, whether we did
So
well or
there's
not.
always something to get better.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, there's always
Okay.
something to get better. But I don't say that doesn't exist. I wish someone would do a podcast on what that means. When they say their band peaked too soon, does that mean they all just gave up? I don't know.
Uh, I
how do they peak too
I think
soon?
they're talking from the standpoint of kids getting bored with what they're doing because they feel like they've got it already. I don't know.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll push back on that respectfully. I think if you prioritize rehearsals, they won't get bored.
That's kind of why I brought it up in
Yeah,
the middle of that.
yeah. I've never thought about that, but I bet that's exactly what they're talking about. The kids are bored, so they don't put as much energy because they know it's not getting any better.
Right.
If you'll just focus in and say, hey, let's run these 4 sets until we can get this done correctly and keep working with them and giving them ideas how to get better, then
Yeah.
maybe they won't get bored and peak. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's much wiser people that could shout me down easily on that,
I don't
say
I don't think so.
bands peak.
Okay. Cool. So prioritize.
Yeah, just you've got to trust the process by working one chunk at a time. Trust that process. In your mind, I know as a director, I'll be sitting there working on one little tiny chunk of the music, and I know good and well we completely fall apart 32 counts later.
Yeah. Right.
But it's hard. I got to get my mind on that one chunk and just be where your feet are. You know what I mean? You're working on that chunk. That's where my feet are right now. I've just got to work that. It doesn't matter that we totally self destruct, at 32 counts later. We'll get to that after this chunk. Then we'll do
And I
another
do think
chunk.
that how do I say this politely? This is my quiet part out loud. If you're just hoping that repetition makes it better without actually breaking it down, this isn't Professor Harold Hill and the Think System.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to explain what's not right and what's not working and make that part better before you try to just keep moving on and we'll get it through repetition.
Yeah, because what they'll do is they'll ingrain the mistakes by repeating them.
Right.
They'll just keep repeating their mistakes, kind of like memorizing music. Some
Bad
kids,
habits are hard to unlearn. Yeah.
yeah, some kids are really smart about this. They'll memorize their music really quickly during summer band. Others will wait till the final moment to memorize their music and play it off because they'll get to play it a whole bunch of times. But what they do both memorize their music. The problem is the one who memorizes it later, they memorize all the mistakes. It
Yeah.
morphed. You know what I mean? They're on the
Right.
field learning drill, memorizing music at the same time. So work that chunk. You got to kind of, and I know that's just another cliche phrase, but trust the process. But you got to have a process.
Right. That's
It's
what I
easy
was
to
getting
say
to.
trust the process, but you got to have a process. And I would dare say that most of my band knew what the process was. They knew exactly what I was thinking when I was thinking it because they knew, I bet he's going to go to measure so and so now. And all of a sudden I
Right.
go to that measure. That they knew what the process was, working one chunk at a time.
Yeah.
And like,
I think I was one of the worst things about me as a musician, even in concert season. If we played a song enough times, I didn't even really have to look at the music anymore because I memorized it just because we played it so many times. But director would say, "Let's write this in here, or let's write that in there," and then I'd have to actually, where is that in the music? And
yeah. Is that after the second valve or is that after the one and three? You had no idea whether it was a
right,
phrase point or not. I'm with you.
right,
I've been there before.
okay. So trust the process,
Yeah, and
have a process.
kind of like you said about working the kids, this is hard to do. You got to define your style, whether it's how to do a staccato, how to do a marcato, how to end a legato phrase, how to start a legato note. That has to be ingrained. It has to be the same consistently every day because it's your style that you've
Okay.
incorporated from listening to other people, even down to how we step off. We can get
So
into does our left heel peel up off the ground and then our foot moves, or does our knee stay straight and we lift with our left hip and our heel moves straight out? What's the position of our toe when the heel touches? What's the line of our leg when the heel hits? Is it straight leg? Is it going to be modified bent leg? Whatever the style is, you can't keep changing it. You got to stay with the same style. You've got to decide as a director exactly how you're going to teach that. Teach your first followers, have them teach the band, reinforce it every day. This is how we step off. This is how we halt. This is how we hold our horn. Is it 90 degrees? Is it 120 degrees between elbows? Whatever your style is, you got to stick to it, my friend. I see
okay,
too many times where the
adjudicator,
band doesn't. Yeah.
adjudicator, Mike. Is there a list somewhere that tells you what your style should be, or is an adjudicator? Do you say that's not the way I would do it, but y'all are all doing it exactly the same?
Yeah, your second statement's correct. Yeah, there's
Okay.
no list. It's as long as they do it the same way. Because as an adjudicator, we constantly, if I'm judging visual at an area marching contest, I'm watching the feet and the bodies and the drill. I'm not judging music at all. I'm just judging marching visual. Okay, and so I take a sampling. I watch the band really carefully. I'm looking back and forth. If 90% of them are doing it exactly the same way, I know the other 10% aren't doing it correct, but I can see their style. With other bands, I've said this on a recording in a respectful way, said, with everyone doing it so many different ways, I really don't understand what your style of marching is. Your style of marching is being done different according to each section because it's obvious the section leaders have impressed their style upon their followers. Does it make
Right.
sense? This is how
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
stop. This is how we hold our horn. This is the position of our elbows. But and there's other bands. Some bands are toe flex bands where the toe is as high as it can be when the heel touches. That's kind of how we grew up. For the
Right.
after military, we grew up with that. Some the toe is only like 2 inches off the ground. But if they all do it 2 inches off the ground, it's perfectly fine. Max
As long as
points
they're
award.
uniform and conformity matters.
That's right. That's right. So whatever your style is, you stick to it because as long as they all do it the same way, you will have maximum award of points, in a contest. And probably more importantly, they'll look sharper on Friday night.
Bingo. Yeah.
The people in the audience don't know it's toe flex band versus modified straight leg. They just go, that looks good. Our
Cool.
band, our band looks sharp. What do they
Yeah.
mean? They do everything the same way. Our band
Right.
looks sharp. They memorize their music and they all move exactly the same way. You've got a good stylistic marching band when parents have a hard time finding their kid.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? It's I couldn't find
I never
Susie.
thought of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, but if Susie marches like Susie walks, it's easy to find Susie. There's
Right.
Susie. She's
Right.
she's just walking. So if it's hard, I couldn't find my kids, and I always go congratulate them.
Right.
Said, and then I'll tell them, I'll say, well, if you wait till that big giant moment when we all play loud, she's on the 40-yard line on the front hash, then you can take a picture. Oh, okay. I always give them
Yeah.
like a hint or whatever, kind of thing.
That's funny.
Um, define that style, break things down, demonstrate over and over and over till you think you just can't do it again, but then just do it one more time, the famous one more time. Just demonstrate what our style is, whether it's playing. I'll just take my trumpet, and these guys I did summer band with this year, they'll tell you we started our playing rehearsals with me just playing simple I play, they play copy exercises where I just do staccatos, marcatos, legatos, lifted notes. How do we release? How do we expel air out of our body? Breathing exercises. How do we breathe? Isn't that an interesting thought? We all
Right.
breathe, otherwise we would die, but we have to learn how we breathe in order to play and to march. And so
Right.
we go through that process. We release by breathing. The second beat, if we have a rest, we expel all air from our body. Then we have a third beat of deadness where nothing happens. And fourth beat, we breathe in. Or do we breathe in two beats? Whatever your style is, just enforce it upon the kids. Okay.
What's funny is if you were watching this when you started talking about that, I just automatically did the way I was
Yeah.
taught.
Yeah.
Just go, yeah, I still remember how to do that.
That's right. You,
But
you breathe in to release a note, just a small breath to release in. Okay. So yeah, it's ingrained in us because it was ingrained in you as a kid. Okay. This is an important one. All of them, I keep saying they're all important because I think they all are important.
sure.
Start rehearsals on time. Even if like 15 kids are not in their spots, don't go, let's wait till those 15 get here. Let's
Right.
wait till the 20 get here. Let's wait till the electronics is set up. Let's wait till the front ensemble gets plugged in. Let's wait till the props get on the field. Start the rehearsal. If nothing else, call them to attention and work on step off fundamentals, because that's a never ending cycle, if you know what I mean. It's
I
like
do.
if the preacher didn't start preaching at the church service and just kind of waited for all the congregation, we probably wouldn't start the service till 1 o'clock.
Right.
Because everybody'd find a reason not to be there. But here's the second part of that: stop when it's time to stop.
Yeah. That's
Do
the
not
tough part.
do not hold I can safely say maybe once or twice in my career I've held kids over for a couple of minutes. I literally just, if we say we're stopping at 6:30 or whatever, stopping at 9 o'clock, we stop. In fact, most times I stop 5 minutes before. So I can throw in a few announcements and we let them go. Because two
Right.
things: you want the kids' trust. They know they have X amount of energy to expend, and this is the time we're going to do it. Plus, mark my words, you don't want to have that argument with a parent
Right.
who's had a full day of work, and now they're sitting in the parking lot at 9 o'clock on a Monday night, and they hear the band playing over and over and over. And the schedule said we stop at 9, and they've got clothes to wash, they've got food to prepare, the routine. And you do not want to have that conversation because you are wrong. If you say stop at 9 o'clock, you stop at 9 o'clock. If
Right.
you
But
want more rehearsal time, schedule it.
there's a reciprocation to that too. You expect me to be on time to start with, but I can't trust you to stop when you said you would stop.
Right. That's exactly right. So why would the kid show up at rehearsal on time if they know that you're just going to take extra time at the end?
Well, you're putting unrealistic expectation on me that you won't
Yeah.
stand to yourself. And you know what every kid that's been in a great band program will look at you and without blinking say, to be early is to be on time, to be on time is to be late. We all know it, but Mr. Miss Band Director, hold up your end of that too.
That's right.
Let him
Because
go when you said you would.
those kids have homework.
Right.
They've got things to do. I mean, I go back home and I just kind of try to decompress and get ready for the next day. I don't have 4 pages of physics homework waiting for me at 9 o'clock. So you've got to be honest in that. Okay.
Okay.
Keep a healthy pace to your rehearsals. Lots and lots of downtime kills progress. It's hard. There's times you do have to work with a X number of kids. And then I always try to, and I think kids can vouch for this. I'd always kind of tell the band, I might even just say, hey, I need to work with the trumpets right now. Everyone else get a water break.
I
Or
get what you say.
or relax or whatever. Don't just make them stand there and watch you work with one group. There's validity to that. I mean, it might be something they have to do later, so that I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I like to try to keep it running on time, where it's a healthy pace to the rehearsal. And what I do is I try to take my drill sheets and now on UDB app, and I try to circle on Fourscore for music. I circle in bright red and then I highlight with a yellow pen on the screen because I can choose what I want to write with, the parts that are potential time killers.
Okay.
So I know it's coming. So maybe I just chew away at a little bit of that, and then I go to something
Sure.
else. Then I come back and chew at it. So try to anticipate potential problems in music or drill and plan a way to work the problem out. Stopping a rehearsal to fix problems happens to everybody. I mean, sometimes it's problems we don't anticipate, but that shouldn't be an everyday part of a rehearsal. It shouldn't be my rehearsal plan is to fix what's messed up. That's not a
Okay.
rehearsal plan. And a lot of directors operate that way. I just rehearse what's messed up. When I work band programs, I like to try, and I can't be as strong as Charles Nail, but he always said you must spend an hour outside and study for every hour you rehearse your band. I think that's true. I didn't really have that much time, so I ended up, maybe 30 minutes. But being said, you must spend some time studying in advance so the kids know
Right.
you know the show. Okay. So you can demand
Right.
excellence out of yourself, and then you demand excellence out of the kids. But those great men like Charles Nail and so forth, I guarantee you they did. They just, for every hour of practice, they spent an hour preparing for practice, analyzing every part, memorizing things.
So let me throw something at you real quick
Okay.
because I think we've evolved. Did you ever write your own drill?
Yes, I did at a time when all directors wrote their own drill.
That's what
And
I'm
my
getting ready to say.
my drill was okay. But when time passed me by and all my drill looked like 1986, then it was like, I think I need to get someone more intelligent to write my drill. But go ahead.
But my point being, you better spend the time to know what's going on. You're the one that wrote it.
Yes.
Or if you buy your show, no, great. A lot of that's kind of the norm, I think, anymore.
Yeah. For
You
most
still
bands.
need
Yeah.
to. You got to study it.
Yeah. If
You
a,
got-
if a kid asks, what count does my left foot step out on the lunge in the body movement? I better have it written on my sheets or know the answer, or because if I say, oh, I'll get back to you on that, you can play that card a few times. After a while, kids start to figure out he doesn't know the show.
he has no clue.
he's he's like painting by colors up there. He really doesn't know what's going on. The kids can figure that out pretty quick, but if you can shoot back and go, oh, left foot, it's on count 7.
But I think
and they're
some
like,
of that
oh, okay.
goes into your downtime conversation as well. If you're
Yes,
spending all your time trying to figure out the answer to a question that you should have already known.
that's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. And the next one is it's kind of have to explain the phrase, but fix it before you move it. Fix it
Okay.
before you move it. When cleaning drill from set to set, take time to stop and adjust each set. Don't just run through and say good enough. We used a system of +1 and -1 where you'd move like 16 counts and take one extra step. So you knew the direction for the next drill set, right? And at the beginning, we'd use a -1. So our left foot would be put back or whatever direction getting into that drill set. And the
Where
metronome
you're
would
coming from.
yeah, and then metronome would start us and we'd move. That way we'd have the kids had a context of how this fit into the drill, and it wasn't a halt point. Halt point, feet start, heels together, toes apart kind of thing. And that's a kind of a hard technique to teach at first because it takes time, but the kids pick it up pretty quick. I think it's harder for the directors to rehearse it than it is for kids to do it because you say, just take a step behind. Where'd you come from? Okay, where was your left foot on count 16 on the previous when your right platform halted? Said, oh,
Right.
it's right here. That's where we start from. And then your foot swings across to go to the next one. I think a more important one is when you get to, when you move 16 counts, I keep saying 16 because it seems like so many drills 16, but you get to the end of your set, we freeze. And I literally say freeze. And then the whole band freezes. And so if someone's in the wrong place, they live in their wrongness. You know what I mean? And that's hard because most bands, they'll go 16 counts, they'll stop, and immediately all the kids go, right? They fix their spot. But does that really help them? Not really, if you think about it, because then what do they do Friday night? They get to the wrong spot and they all go, they
Mhm.
fix their spot. That's what they do Friday night. So what we do is we tell them to freeze. So they freeze, and then their job is to think about, I'm in the wrong spot. What do I do different next time? They start to analyze and adjust. Okay. And then you say, check. That's step two. Check. You still leave your horns in position, whether it's side carry, horns up, whatever, and they move their head. They never look at the field, never look down. You look at the people around you and you start to analyze. Yeah, I'm in the wrong spot.
You're going to
What
say,
do I need
am
to
I in
do?
the set or not?
Yeah, he's you're 5 steps outside the form, and I'm just waiting for Mr. Lunney to yell at me at this moment. So they live in their wrongness, and then finally you say the magic word, adjust. At that time, they can now look at the field, they can they get to their spot, and then you say, okay, go back to set 14. They go back, -1, start the metronome, march it again. That kid's had a lot of time to think about it. He's thinking, I'm in the wrong spot. What do I do different to get in the right spot? When I adjusted, how far did I have to adjust? Is it the people around me screwing up, or am I screwing up? Because that's a valid point. It might be the 5 people around you are marching too big a step size and going to the wrong place. And it makes you look wrong.
And I'll
So
have you know, when I was in that position, everybody else was wrong.
well, yeah, because you're a trumpet player. Yeah. But if you'll follow that system, which seems like it takes more time, because at first it does, it's kind of like sharpening the saw, that it takes a little bit more time at first, but your drill will finally be correct, and then you can put music to it, and it really does work well. So I really kind
Okay.
of push that on a lot of people.
Well, it's a great concept when you sit and actually listen to what you just said and think about how much better that is from a teaching standpoint than just you screwed up, do it again.
Yeah. It's repetition with purpose.
Yeah.
Instead of repetition to fill time. Because
Right.
then there's nothing worse as a human being to be doing the same thing over and over and knowing, you might remember far enough back as a band kid. Isn't it so frustrating that you keep doing the same thing over and it's never working? The people are
Right.
all going to wrong places, but nothing's being corrected. But you've done it 15 times in a row with the director hoping that it's somehow everyone will get to the right position. That's a tough situation, because that's why kids kind of don't like rehearsal. But if they
Right.
see that we're getting better, I think they'll do it. They'll do it much better. Another thing in terms of learning drill, teaching the path. Most of the time, I think the general rules of marching band are always the general rules, right? We pretty much always face forward to the front sideline. We always stay between 2 people.
Right.
We always take a big first step. Okay. We always take a straight line from our dot to the next dot. That's a general rule. Those things are, when we march backwards, we keep our legs straight. There's those general rules that every kid has beat into their head. Sometimes you do have to teach a path. And you'll watch the
Right.
drill, and you better figure that out before the drill's being taught, to go to your mellophones and go, hey guys, you're going to have to take, there's 16 steps. The first 8 are going to be little steps, and we're going to draw a curve. Each person's going to curve. And then the last 8 steps are going to be big steps, because by that time the guard will have cleared. They'll have gone through you. And so we make
Right.
it this and then this, and teach them that path with UDB and all those really cool technology things that we have in our hands nowadays. It'll show you the path. The kids can
Right.
literally look at their device, but if you're still using charts and coordinate sheets and whatever, you've got to get down on the field or have someone help you and say, no, we got a curve right here. That way you're teaching the students the path from set 1 to set 2, not just a starting point or an ending point. It's not
Right.
enough just to be on your point, on your set point. You've got to have the path be correct for the kids to do things correctly.
Trombones, please don't hit everybody in the head as we make.
Yeah. Yeah. Something as simple. Do the trombone slides go up, or do they go behind the people? Make it look
Right.
the same so you don't have a porcupine effect. Okay. And really teach the kids and directors too, that drill is the movement. It's not the set points. Okay. A set point lasts for a split second. Focus more on the movement between set points. Have the kids analyze step size, foot technique, horn angles, body angles, all this stuff. Hitting your set point is important, but the movement from set to set is much more important. Think of it in terms of, let's say, just to be generic, all our drill moves are 16 counts. I know that's not true, but let's just say it is. So our set points are only 1/16 of our drill, isn't it?
Okay.
That's a tiny,
That-
tiny part of our drill, is the forms.
Right.
Just make the form look right. The important part is our posture. When we march, our tone quality when we play is our tone quality. When
Right.
we march, our visual tone quality is our posture and how we move from set to set.
They
You can
can't all be
fool.
scatter drills, right?
Yeah, that's right. And even with a scatter drill nowadays, there's a form and function to that, man. You do a jazz run, you better do it the right way. You know what I mean? There's different
Yeah.
ways to do it, but I should say it should look uniform. It can't just be the old days of just run to your spot. That doesn't
Right.
work anymore. Okay. So just try to keep impressing upon the kids how important it is to move between sets and keep your posture consistent. Because again, the judges don't have drill sheets. You can fool them, unless it's totally outlandish. You went 2 yard lines too far, and it
Right.
stretched everything out. But if it's like little bitty things, just stay between two people, have great body posture, and they'll think you were the one that was correct when
Right.
they're watching the band.
Good thoughts, man. Good thought.
Yeah. And on some drill moves, we already mentioned it, adjust step size within the drill. We won't go over that again. Here's an important one that I was guilty of forever until I finally learned my lesson the hard way. Do not teach new material on Friday because you will just have to reteach it twice as hard on Monday. Trust me on this one. So simply
Ask
use
me how I know.
yeah, simply use Friday to review what you've taught earlier that week. Never, ever, except for announcements, nothing new should happen on a Friday. It should be everything we've already done, because they're not going to
Okay,
retain
so
that.
let me walk through ignorance here. Make sure I get a comprehension of what you just said. So you're going to teach Monday through Thursday if you're
Mhm.
going to install,
Yeah,
but Friday is just rehash of what we learned this week, or as in football terms, it's the walkthrough.
right. It's the walkthrough. And I think in more defined terms, Monday and Tuesday, we teach the new material. Wednesday and Thursday, we fix the new material. Friday, we just rehash the material. We don't teach anything new. And we're not really necessarily fixing anything at that moment. We're just trying to make it work for that Friday night performance. As we
Right.
all know, the taxpayers are watching.
So if I just feel like I'm going to shove in two more sets in Friday rehearsal before I get on a 3 hour bus trip to go perform, it's my fault when the extra two sets fall apart.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of
So,
comes to the old adage of, and this is another one of my bad habits, the kids who do it wrong 10 times, then they do it right once, and I'd go to the next thing. So guess what they did Friday night? They did it the wrong way because they did it 10
you're
times wrong.
saying, I got
Yeah. So
that,
you got to be
that's a
careful
great
because
point.
you're excited because they did it right. All right, let's work on the next set. But then Friday night, they're going, we did it wrong 10 times. And
You
so
got to
they're gradually,
reinforce that correct time. Yeah.
you got to reinforce it. And that's hard to do because our brains are in hyperactive. A little game I like to play with the band and fundamental marching session to sort of teach them how to learn drill later. I called it Simon, kind of based on the old Simon Says game with the
Okay.
lights. You remember that game where you have to hit the lights in order? Yeah, yeah, kind of that idea. It wasn't like Simon Says. Simon Says is a whole different problem. I would tell the band one command to start. Said we're going to forward march 8, and they would repeat back forward march 8. We start the metronome, they'd forward march 8 and halt. Then I'd say add another command, right slide 8. So now they know they have to forward march 8, right slide 8. So then they'd repeat it back to me. After you have several commands in a row, practice them. So the idea is to teach the band how to learn drill. It's not just, it's meant as a brain skill exercise. And depending on how good your band is, you can get 5 or 6 moves in a row. And a lot of the kids will go, I got it. I got it. We're going to go forward 8,
Okay.
slide
So
right for 8, go
you're saying
backwards
that
8.
they're not practicing these as you add them. They're all at a standstill as you add. We're going to do this 8. We're going to do that 8. We're going to do
Well,
this 8.
you do the first 8, then they practice moving that 8. Then they go back to their original dot and say, okay, now we're
Okay.
going to do that plus this.
That's what I
And
was
so,
asking.
yeah, yeah. And then so they move and they do 2 sets of 8, and then they go back to the original dot. Now you add another one. So now it's 3 sets of 8. And so you leave it at one number because that'll really freak them out. I mean, if you got a really, really good
Sure.
band, they can do it. But it kind of
But
teaches
you're
them to
also
think in continuity.
reinforcing the moves that they already knew as they do it. Really, all
Yes.
they have to remember is the last command if you're
Yes,
doing it enough times.
the rest becomes kinesthetic. It's muscle
Yeah.
memory. Yeah, so they can figure it
Ooh,
out. Yeah.
college
That's
word.
SAT words, man. I went to college. I barely passed. Okay. I went to the school of hard knocks after I graduated. Okay.
Kinesthetic? Is that what?
Kinesthetic. Yeah.
Okay.
Kinesiology is what we used to call coaching degrees. Now they're
Right. I got it.
kinesiology majors, so
So I'm
they're
trying to
fancy.
break that down. Kines would be motion or
Yeah, I
muscular,
think it's Latin for motion, maybe,
and
or
then
muscle. I don't
aesthetic
know.
is looking good while you do it.
Probably so. We can make believe. I can
All
barely
right.
spell, Derek. Don't get me into etymology and word origins because I can barely spell. You've seen my emails that I send you. You probably look at him and go, "Does this guy have a seventh grade degree? What's his problem?"
Nah.
Yeah. um, but another thing that I do in this idea is I get them in the idea of this Simon drill of repeating back the commands to me. And then when we do drill, we get to like set 41, and I say, okay, -1, move 16, +1. And the drum major will then, who's assigned, will go -1, move 16, +1. Then the whole band says -1, +16, or move 16, +1. Then we start the metronome. So even the most distracted child on the field has heard it at least 3 times.
Wow.
And you get them used to repeating that process. So I assign a different drum major each day to be my parrot. And so the other ones are watching for heat exhaustion, they're timing for water breaks. But that one drum major for that day is my parrot. So whatever command I give, they parrot it over their PA. They have a headset on, and then the band repeats it back to them. And that way it gives the kids a much higher odds of success
Okay.
on what they
Here's a
do.
small rabbit trail. I promise it's small. How do you
No, we're
count
good.
off a -1?
Oh, they just have the foot back there. So the metronome still goes click, 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 horns up, and 1. So the foot kind of swings across the body. So it's not like a
So
regular
instead
from
of
a halt.
standing at 1, they're just standing on their platform or whatever where they were before 1.
Yes, the right foot's in platform, the left foot's in platform, probably coming from where it's coming from. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because it might be they're moving backfield, so it'd be in front of them, or most times it's behind them. And so they hear that click, 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 click. The horns go 5 and 6, 7. Push. You push down with your right platform. Your left foot rises and comes across and plants for 1. Push and 1. It just has to move
So
further.
right, they're not stepping off. The and one
No,
is the
no.
platform.
They only do that from a halt.
Got it.
Because within
Makes
the
sense.
drill, it's not a halt. Yeah,
No,
otherwise,
I
when you
got it.
teach drill, they keep stopping. It's kind of humorous in a way when you teach it the other way because the kids never know when to stop. Or they don't know when to keep going. They keep stopping and then they skip. They do their feet that weird skippy thing, and they start moving again, and they stop and they do that skippy thing and they move. And you're going, guys, it's 64 counts without a halt. Well, I know, but we practiced it how? We practiced
We've
it
been
halting
halting
every
for
time.
weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So you got to do the -1 +1 just to help them on that. Okay. Then the next step, and I know this is a lot of stuff, so I'm hoping someone will get something out of some of this, and I know it works. So please buy in if you can. When setting and cleaning curvilinear forms, have everyone point their toes to the center of the circle, or what I like to call the focus point of the arc. So that's the place where you could stand in front of an arc and be equidistant from every person in the arc. That's the focal point, just like a camera lens. It has a focal point. So I would have a drum major, a section leader stand in that point. Everyone turns and points their toes to him, and then that person can fix their intervals. He can look at him and go, scoot over, scoot this way, scoot that way, scoot that way.
Right.
Okay. Now everybody point your toes to the front. Now put your horns up in playing position. Use your eyes, look around. This is what it's going to look like when you arrive here. That's how far you're away from this person. You're not going to see this person. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
So
you create landmarks.
yeah, you create landmarks in that. So they're not going to their dot. They're going to how far am I away from the baritone in front of me? How far is the baritone behind me away from me? Can I see their bell over my shoulder? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's that close. Like, is there slide? Is a trombone? Is there a slide moving next to me? That helps them learn things. Then they turn their foot position back and they square up at the front sideline. And
You know
that's
what's
something.
crazy, Mike, that we're complex enough creation
Mhm.
that we get used to hearing that sound coming from this point. We
Yeah,
know
well,
just by where that sound's coming from if the person behind us isn't where they normally are.
yeah. Or if they freak out and don't play.
Right.
Then we start to go, oh my God, what's happening? You're right, but we can hear it because every time something moves an X amount of space, if you double the space it moves from, the decibels cut exactly in half. So at
Crazy.
10 feet, it's at this many decibels. At 20, it's exactly half. So if two kids behind you quit playing, all of a sudden it's like, I don't think anyone's playing, you
But I
know?
mean, you're just talking about creating, if we do it 50 times a certain way, it doesn't take very far of a variance before we go, something's wrong. Something's
Right.
off.
That's right. As long as they're analyzing the whole time,
Right.
they just have to
Okay.
analyze the whole time. Okay. And clean up loose ends, kind of put a bow on this thing. All these different intricate things of how to do it. Take whatever processes you want to do, just stick to your process. But the main thing is clean up any loose ends. Make
Okay.
everything as uniform and standard as possible, from how hats are worn to how the instruments are held. And it takes so much time, but it shows so much discipline and attention to detail. It's absolutely amazing the amount of things that have to get done
Are the
to make a
hemlines
band.
correct?
Yeah, we used to use like a 2x4, and we take a 2x4 in the instrument in the uniform room, and turn it up on its edge, and that's where the back of the heel, the pan had to touch. So the ladies knew to, they knew exactly where to do it. So it was exactly the same. It was the same distance from the ground for every single person. Do we put our pinky in the ring? Do we not put our pinky in the ring? It's a never ending process. Clarinets getting their
Details,
chins
details,
up.
details.
Saxophones like to rest their horns on their bellies, when they carry them in front of them, so get your horn away from your belly, stick it out there a little bit, so whatever your situation is, however you want to teach it, I respect it. It's going to be great. You've just got to make sure it's exactly the same for every player. And I hate to say it, but marching wise, visually, it's a first division if everything looks the same.
Right.
That's it. It's not rocket science. Music's a lot more complicated. Visual is not that complicated. Make it look identical. Even to the
I'm,
point of if kids will allow you to do it from kid to kid, record them marching with like an iPhone or an Android and let them see it in slow motion. Because sometimes kids think their feet are doing something, but they're not really doing it. But they think they are, so they're not changing. Sometimes you can said show it to them like, "Oh, that's what my feet are doing." Just film their feet. You know, I don't know.
that's how we
It's
teach golf swings.
That's right. That's right. Um,
You know
it's
what?
just
I'm gonna interrupt you. It's
okay.
amazing to me. I don't know that we do this anymore because I see so many groups. I do a lot of announcing,
Hmm.
and so I see most groups from the time they walk out of a tunnel or enter the field, not necessarily on the field, but enter the field, to the time they leave the field.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I think to myself, I can tell what kind of band I'm fixing to watch based on how they come on the field or
Yeah.
come into the area there. Now I know now everybody just kind of walks out to their opening set, and we have all this pre-contest music and dance moves that we're all doing before they. It's not like it used to be. Drum as you may enter the field of competition,
Right.
but they used to drill that into us. You're getting whether subconsciously or consciously, based on how you carry your horn, how uniform you are. Just are you a disciplined group?
Yes.
Or are you a bunch of ragtags that are going to come out here and ooze around on the field for a while?
Yeah. And you're right. Even with all that pre show material where they're coming onto the field, they're basically walking onto the field, setting props. It's real easy as an adjudicator to see that they have a system. Everyone's moving at a certain pace, everything's moving at a certain style, everything's being put correctly instead of kids looking around panicking.
Right. They
Like
know where they're
we,
going. Yeah.
yeah, they all know where they're going. But even something as simple, and I'll say another quiet part out loud. Please don't have your band show up and peek through the tunnels on the opposite side with half a uniform on.
Right.
I mean, that's not going to cost you a rating, but it sure looks like crap.
Right.
To have
And
kids running around, screaming on the other side. You can hear kids honking on their horns, and you can tell which band it is. And I promise you, I'm not going to say it would have been a one. I'm going to give it a two. I would never go that far because I judge on the performance in the field. But it sure is disheartening to see a band so undisciplined that they,
yeah,
have the overlay hanging off and one shoe on, and
there
it's just
is
like,
no
good Lord,
escaping that
kids.
you have created an impression
Yeah, yeah,
before you ever get to the field.
yeah.
Okay. I'll leave it alone.
All right, we'll just leave it with that really bad thought right at the end of our podcast. Good luck on that
Oh,
positive culture there, guys. You go for it.
yeah, there's a couple other things I want you to address, though.
Yeah, don't let your band look
Um,
stupid.
Well, I'm kind of trying to walk into discipline's part of this.
Oh yeah,
And intelligent kids not only hope for, but need discipline
they do. They do.
or
Intel
expect.
Yeah, intelligent people know there's a need for discipline. When we go into a church, we want a certain discipline to a worship service. We don't want
Right.
anybody doing anything they want to do. We want a certain discipline to it. When the band's called to parade rest or to stand by, another great routine in rehearsal, standby is a command where they do kind of a parade rest with a horn in front of their body, but their eyes look at the instructor. We go stand by. Every kid does his thing. When I say eyes, they say the word pop, and all the eyes move to me. So we expect a certain amount of discipline. People thrive in discipline because discipline is not punishment.
Right.
People think discipline's punishing somebody, taking away their third quarter. Discipline's a feeling on the inside of your body that makes you want to behave a certain way so you can be a better person and a better part of that group. That's what we're trying to develop. Where discipline, the other thing is called punishment. That's two different aspects. I hate to get so philosophical at the end of a podcast, but so many people say we need to discipline those kids. No, you want to punish them. Don't use the
Right.
word discipline. Discipline is an interior motive. Okay. But yeah, they really do. You can tell a disciplined group by how everything's worn. Like we talked about Argyle on one other podcast. I thought their drum majors were so cool because every time they lined up for massing, they'd announce a band in whatever order. And then, of course, those drum majors from that band would step forward, receive their plaque or whatever. But the Argyle drum majors would always stand at attention. They go to parade rest, and they'd go back to attention. It was always three claps. Talk about discipline. It was always
Yeah.
acknowledge them. That group did well. Clap, clap, clap. Back to attention. It wasn't, hey, you guys did good. So there's certain, and I think everyone in the band world would see groups like that because lots of groups do it, and you see it as a very disciplined thing, and that's really kind of cool, So discipline done well. There's no things in my life through music as a performer that were more exciting than to be in the midst of a highly disciplined group.
Yeah.
That
And
was
there's a pride that comes from it.
oh God, that was so cool that we do a horns up. All of us do it exactly the same way. And the crowd goes,
Right.
there's a certain
And
coolness to it.
to not jump off on the wrong side of this though, but we knew the other groups all went, oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I would always say we like to work on the things that would just annoy lesser bands. Yeah.
I think
We,
that's a
we
great
take,
statement.
we take great pride in working on all those details would simply annoy a lesser band of musicians. And we're not trying to point out any group, but it's the truth speaks for itself. We're willing to work on a horns up for 30 minutes just so it's
Yeah.
exactly right and said, it's okay.
All right.
So good luck, guys, out there on your drill, man. If you run into problems, give me a call. It's a
Well,
lot
that's what
to
I was
do.
getting ready to say.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of things over these two episodes.
Yeah.
If I'm not 32 years experienced and I find some of this kind of intimidating, Mike, let's encourage. There's people that have done this for a while that will help.
Oh, yeah. Even if you just send a video, let's say you have a budget that doesn't allow for a whole lot of clinician stuff. If it's close enough to where I live, I'll go for a meal at Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? To help out someone if I have time. I'm
Don't
not
make
asking.
me get my ALSIP sign out.
Yeah, I don't mind give also sign out. Yeah, but also just it's unbelievable the amount of video that I go through during marching season, and I just do a judges. I listen to it, and this is another tangent. So do we have time?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
okay. All right. So what I do is I get the video, and the first thing I do is I put it up. I got a 65-inch monitor, and I got my Yamaha studio cabinets. So I run it through my computer, and I run the video. The first thing I do is turn off the monitor, and I just listen to the music. And I take some
Okay.
notes. Then I turn off the music, and I turn on the monitor so the speakers aren't working, and I just watch it. Okay, so that's a second run. The third run, I watch both together. I take notes. The fourth time, I pick up my phone and do a voice memo. So I do a judge's tape. So I
Okay.
go through the whole process with it. And then that way they have at the end, they have a judge's tape that's been analyzed both by visual and musical and all together combined. And then I go down all my notes real quick. So they might have like a 15-minute voice memo on their 7-minute show. But that in itself can help out. And because if you're the one band director at the school that's the only school in the county, you don't have anyone that can help you. So
Right.
and believe me, no charge. You know what I mean? I just like doing that. I like to see kids do better. And so I'm not going to charge people for things like that. But yeah, reach out, man. There's people everywhere that will help. You don't have to, look for the life preserver. You don't have to
Right.
drown.
And don't be too proud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
You're,
be too proud. We're all
yeah.
in this thing. We've all been there. We've all done it. And some of us wish we'd have asked for help earlier. So,
Yes, sir.
my brother, I hope you have a fantastic week. Thanks as always for
Yeah, man.
being
It's been a
willing to
blast. Thanks for
share the things that you know.
thanks for putting up with my big giant list over the last 2 weeks.
I think
It's a
lists are
good list.
cool.
It's a good
Yeah.
list.
All right, man. Well, we'll figure out something else to talk about next week. Hope you have an awesome one.
Will do, man. It's good to see you.
All right.